Welcome to the podcast of School Beyond Limitations. In this podcast, you will learn how to guide your child through their school life with the intention to help them find their unique essence that will allow your daughter, your son to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. Is a rigid curriculum outdated in today's society? My name is Dr. Martina. I'm the CEO, co-founder and designer of the school model of School Beyond Limitations. If you would like to see your child live a fulfilled and happy life, then this may be the right channel for you. Well, if we look at students' feedback about their high school or secondary school experience in the first place, it's a little bit different in primary school. But if I'm listening to what students tell me in their admission processes, and if I also look at the studies that are shown on a regular basis, at an international level, then there is evidence for students to feel that they feel and think that the curriculum, the rigid curriculum in schools seems to be outdated. And I'm referring now to a specific study that was released and published in 2020 by Yale University researchers, where they wanted to find out how students, especially high school students and secondary school students, feel about their experience at school. And interestingly enough, the outcome was not promising, or is not promising. The outcome is that over 70%, 75% actually, of the students mentioned that they feel negative about their school experience. And the main reasons for those, bad and negative feelings were that they feel extremely tired about going to school because their school day is so long. It starts early in the morning. They feel extremely bored. 80% of the students, actually 70% of the students mentioned that they are bored in school because the content doesn't mean anything to them. The content is there, but they can't really relate to the content, and they think, what am I here for? And this is what many students also tell me in the admission process. And they say, well, I have to deal with content that I already either know, because, out there is a variety of possibilities of informing myself. And then students actually say, why do I have to dig deeper with something that I already know? And maybe it's not even relevant for them. And then they get really bored about it. But the curriculum is rigid, and they still need to undergo this process of going, of doing all of that in order to be ready for the assessments and the tests, the continuous tests that are done. And that's an 80% of the students said that they feel really stressed about school because there is nearly no day where there is no test coming up, where they have to just reproduce what they have learned basically by heart, and it's meaningless to them. And so where does that lead to? That leads towards making students really sick, either psychologically or even physically sick. And many of them experience a burnout, many of them experience depression, many of them lose whatever was within themselves before, curiosity for learning. And I just had a conversation recently with one of our potential new facilitators who is undergoing the teacher training with us at the moment. And he was saying, I had a student he's a history facilitator teacher, and he said, I had to teach the Second World War. And this was a student who was very knowledgeable about the First World War. And since he had to really stick to the content, he had to say to the student, I'm sorry, now is not the time for you to speak, because now we are talking about the Second World War and not about the First World War. And there is also the pressure on the facilitator, on the teacher themselves, right? So that they need to actually deliver the content that the pre-given curriculum actually expects them to do. So I think what this tells us is that it's for both parties, not only for the students, but also for the facilitators themselves. It doesn't allow them to be flexible. So this facilitator, this teacher, was not able to say in this specific moment, of course we talk about the First World War as well. Couldn't you actually share your knowledge about that? Couldn't you inspire the other students about it? It was not possible. So he cut the a student off, and you can imagine what happened then. It frustrated the student, but it also frustrated the facilitator, because he said, I was not actually going with the interest of the student. I felt miserable afterwards, and this curriculum doesn't allow me for any flexibility. And if there's no flexibility, and if I get cut off, you can imagine how the student feels and how the facilitator, the teacher feels. They really get cut off with their inner knowing and with their own creativity. So maybe, and for sure, there has been creativity there. This student, for instance, was so interested in the First World War that he would dive much deeper into all the different notions of the World War I. But by doing that, everything was just cut off. And the understanding, the creativity that actually lies within you is kind of blocked, and the rigid curriculum doesn't allow for such possibilities to unfold. It doesn't allow to go in a different direction. It doesn't allow the student and the facilitator to just go with what is within the context in that specific moment. So the main thing is on the memorization of the content, and that's and that's what the message that gets to the student is actually constantly there in a rigid curriculum. And on top of that, I think a very important aspect is also that the students then perceive that there is no real relevance for their real life situation, for their own interests. And they feel that, there is no chance to discuss something that is happening, for instance, now. So if I'm just focusing on the Second World War and I can't look, for instance, what's happening around me now and how it's interrelated and what we can do about it and how it's interrelated with other disciplines, the student feels like separated, feels like, what does it mean? Why shall I do that? It's basically the meaning for learning gets lost. And I think if we just consider all of that, if we realize that, all of this blocking of creativity blocks also, the student to put forward their initiative, to become engaged in the lessons, then they just sit there and basically turn off their attention, their focus, because they don't feel that what is happening in the classroom context is relevant to them. And this has another ripple effect on the well-being also of the facilitator, because the facilitator, the teacher, knows that they need to go through all the content because they need to demonstrate that they have done it, that they are getting their students ready for the assessment. And it's only, geared towards the assessment. And once the assessment is done, then I can just tick it off. But there is no real clarity that what I'm learning in school is related to real life. So, and that's why I really believe, considering all of the above and all of what I said before, it's really clear that, a pre-given curriculum, if there is no flexibility and if there's no space also for empowering students with regards to their well-being, with regards to the development of their soft skills also, then we are, instead of growing and developing young students who are ready to embrace the challenges of today's society, they basically get kind of paralyzed. They basically get numb and get frustrated, and they don't see the point of actually going to school anymore, and they get depressed and they get demoralized and demotivated. So I think it's not for everyone. There are certainly students who like and enjoy, just doing whatever the curriculum tells them to do, because that gives them structure. And for sure there are such students. But as mentioned before, more than 75% of the students said that school gives them the feeling that there is no meaning in traditional schooling, that they feel tired, bored, they feel stressed, they disconnect with themselves, they feel that something bad is happening at school, that they just want to go beyond school, that they can't wait for school to end. And this has to stop, in my view. School is beautiful. School is part of life. School is and life shouldn't be separated, because learning is taking place anytime, everywhere, all the time. And whatever a student wants to share, whatever a student wants to develop, should be fostered for. And this is what we are doing at School Beyond Limitations. So yes, I would say today's curriculum is outdated for the reasons I said before. And we can integrate some structure, of course, in schooling, but we need to listen to what makes our students, again, curious, motivated, inspired, interested, and we need to help them find their own real essence, because they do have it, and each and everyone has it. So that's why I think School Beyond Limitations is really working at the forefront of this kind of approach. And if you feel that this is resonating with you, then please reach out to us. You will find the website link in the description.
At School Beyond Limitations, we support our students find their unique essence. Feel free to share the content of this podcast with other parents. We are here to show that your children can, indeed, bring their unique essence into life. So, reach out to us if you think that this is what you'd like your daughter, your son to experience, or apply through our website. Also, leave your comments, your questions, or your review about the podcast. Share it with others. And as you know, sharing is caring.